Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Mal with Made by Manny and Mal. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I achieved this half and half split tumbler design with a half vinyl wrap and then a half glittered side on a tapered tumbler. So I hope that you enjoy it. I hope it's helpful for you. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a big old thumbs up. Everything I'm using is linked in the description box below. So without further ado, let's go. We're starting with a fully prepped and sanded 24-ounce taper from Craft Haven, and we're going to be wrapping half of it with this super cute vinyl from the Vinyl Cottage. It is the kind of like Rolling Stone tongue deal. So what I'm gonna do first is split my cup in half. So I'm really trying to be exact with this measurement. Usually I wouldn't measure for a split cup, but I wanted to make sure that each side was perfectly even, or the best I can get it. So I'm placing this piece of tape down on the bottom of the cup, kind of where I think the middle is, and then measuring to make sure that each half is equal. And then I'm taking my little pieces of tape on each side, making sure that those are like coming down straight on the cup, and then I'll take a bigger piece of tape and make sure that that line to split the cup is straight as well. Like I said, you totally don't have to do this. You can just eyeball it, freehand it, whatever. I just really wanted to make sure everything was even and kind of go the extra mile for this cup in particular. So I'm going to repeat that same process on the other side. And then once I've got my cup split in half, I'm going to add another piece of tape on the side I'm not working on, just so I don't get confused. And for this wrap, when you're wrapping tapered cups, you end up using a lot more vinyl than, like, you can't just cut your piece of vinyl in half and then wrap that around your cup, if that makes sense. So I'm going to wrap this vinyl around, measure where I'm going to cut it, and you'll see it's quite a bit for that small little space. And this is because when you have a tapered cup, you have to account for the widest part at the top and all the way up and down, like that entire surface. So I kind of add a little bit of a tilt, kind of shift it a little to make sure that we get the most out of our pattern and that we cover that entire side. So I just added another piece of tape because I was kind of getting confused. So instead of going straight, like lining the straight edge of my vinyl up with the straight edge of my tape, I'm going to kind of tilt my vinyl so you can see that I have a whole lot of excess on each side, and this is to allow me to get full coverage on that top rim that's fatter. And I'm kind of applying this like somewhat straight but not fully. So my advice would be to just test it on your cup and then tape it down, kind of how I'm doing here. So I placed the vinyl where I wanted it to go and how I wanted it to lay down. And now I'm going to tape one end of the vinyl down onto my cup to make sure that our vinyl stays placed exactly where I put it. This is not as hard as you would think it is, wrapping this tapered cup. It's way, way, way harder to wrap a curved tumbler. So if you wanted to do wraps on these kinds of cups, it's totally doable and it's really not super difficult. Once I've got my vinyl tape down on one side, I'm going to pull back a little bit of the backing, just testing it one more time. And then I'm going to pull back a little piece of the backing. And as you can see, we're going to start laying our vinyl down way before our actual half starts. But this is again to make sure that we get plenty of coverage on that top rim, that we don't have any bald spaces left. We don't want to have to go in and patch things up later. So I added another line of tape to help me trim off the excess later. I just wanted it to be a little bit easier to feel. And then I cut off any excess from the top so that vinyl doesn't go to waste. So now I'm going to pull back one piece of the backing and start to lay my vinyl down. So I'm going to cut off that little bit of excess and then lay our vinyl down. And this will eventually just get trimmed off, but it's going to help make sure that we have our vinyl placed exactly where we need it to go. So I pulled back a little bit of the excess, and now I'm going to test it again and make sure that it will wrap around the cup perfectly. So what I'm doing here is just kind of pushing it up to where that tape line starts, where our half of our cup will like officially begin, because I want to make sure that at this point it's going to wrap around and be the right way. So I'm making sure that we don't have any bald spots, that every spot is covered, and that the pattern will look good where it's placed. And then from here, I'm just gonna go and apply the vinyl how I normally do. I'm gonna hold the cup steady with one hand and then smooth the vinyl onto the cup with my other hand, pushing the backing away in the process. So then once I hit that other piece of tape on the opposite side, I'm gonna trim off any of that little excess, and then I'm gonna go in with my craft knife and find that tape line that I laid down in the beginning and use that as a guide to cut off my excess. And I'm going really slow here. I did kind of speed up this footage just the tiniest bit. Make sure that you're taking your time and that you are cutting accurately. So then I'm gonna remove that excess vinyl and then go to the other side and lay down a piece of tape over that half to help me cut that excess off and keep everything straight and good. Once I've got all the excess vinyl trimmed off from the sides, I'm going to remove all of my tape, and then we're going to take care of the top and bottom of the cup. For the top rim, I'm doing the same thing I always do. I'm gonna pull that excess vinyl up really tightly over that rim to prevent any lifting or bubbles up there. And then I'm gonna take my craft knife right like perpendicular to the top rim and trim off that excess, and then go in again with my craft knife, holding it at a 45-degree angle to trim off that tiny little line of vinyl. And this is what's going to help us start to develop that thin line of stainless steel to form our epoxy seal later. Then for the bottom, I'm gonna pull up this excess over the bottom rim and then trim off where that natural ridge is in the cup. So here's what our vinyl wrap looks like, and now we're going to tape off this wrap part so we can glitter the other side of our cup. The glitters we're using are kind of a gunmetal gray kind of black mix that we're going to create. So I'm not going to base paint the cup. I'm just going to tape this off, and then we're going to go right in with the epoxy method for the glitter. The glitters we're going to be mixing together are Brilliant. These are all from PDB, Gunmetal, and then we're going to take Saros, which is kind of a holographic like gray color, Midnight, which is a fine black, and Matador, which is the chunky red. So the three silvers, Brilliant, Gunmetal, and Saros, I added more of, and then I added just a little bit of Midnight and Matador to kind of tie in the vinyl to this glitter side. I'm applying the glitter using the epoxy method, like I said, but I am applying a little bit more epoxy than I usually would. I just wanted to kind of have this like sink into the epoxy and not have to do a ton of like pressing down or anything like that. So I used a little bit more epoxy than normal, not a ton. Maybe instead of 1 milliliter, I used like 2 to 3 milliliters, like really not a lot still. Sorry for this horrible camera angle as I'm glittering. I just applied the glitter to that entire half of the cup, and then immediately after glittering, I removed our tape and then let that glitter layer dry about 3 hours, then went in with my first coat of epoxy. I didn't spray seal this, I just went right in with epoxy. I did the epoxy on the vinyl side first and then the glitter side. Once that sat and cured, spun for 4 hours, I added a second coat of epoxy, and then when that one was cured, I did all of my sanding. So that's where we are now. And now we're going to add our decal and our vinyl striping. So for these vinyl stripes, I cut them at the usual 11.5 inches long by 0.11 inches high. So these are just really thin black lines to help finish this up. I cut it out of regular black Oracal 651 vinyl. And now I'm going to place these stripes down on the bottom, but I'm going to end up going back and lifting them up so I can add a vinyl circle at the bottom. You can cut off the excess or do whatever you want. I just realized that I hadn't done anything with the bottom yet. So I'm going to add the same stripe to the other side, and then we'll go in with our decal. So for the decal, I thought it would be really cute to use this "Well-behaved women rarely make history" quote. And this is from Lettered by Stephanie. She has a great shop on Etsy with tons of adorable SVGs. So I will have that linked in the description box below. I created a really thin offset in Silhouette Studio, and I cut the offset out of red chrome vinyl from Tech Wrap Craft. And now I'm just cutting off any excess backing, so I have a little bit of transfer tape hanging over the sides to help me place this decal and make sure that it is centered on this half of the cup. Once I've got it laid down with the backing still on, I'm going to just measure and make sure that it actually is centered and that I'm not just eyeballing wrong. And then I'm going to use the hinge method to apply to the cup. So I'm going to cut off half of this backing, lay down half the decal, and then lift up the other half of the decal and slide it onto our cup. Then for the white regular decal that we're going to place on top of this, I'm going to cut it apart how I always do and apply word by word, kind of line by line. And I'm using the exact same piece of transfer tape that I used to apply the offset. This transfer tape is fantastic. I love it and I use it for everything. That is linked down below as well. Okay, so here's what the cup looks like with the decal all applied. I love this red chrome vinyl. It's so pretty and it goes perfectly with the glitter and everything. So then here is the circle that I talked about adding. I just cut it out of regular black Oracal 651 vinyl. And for this 24-ounce tapered cup from Craft Haven, I cut the bottom circle at 2.5 inches exactly, and it fits right into that little kind of inset circle. Once I had this down, I just started at the middle and then pushed outward to make sure everything was smooth. I took those black stripes that I added in the beginning and just folded them over and kind of had them meet in the middle. You can totally trim off the excess like at the outer ridge of the cup or wherever you think it looks best. I just figured they're already here. I might as well just slide them into the middle and finish the cup that way. So now that we've got everything done, we're going to go in with our final coats of epoxy. So I'm going to do 2 final coats and they're each going to be about 15 to 20 milliliters. I'm letting them spin for about 4 hours in between each coat. And once that final coat was all cured, this cup is all finished. I am really proud of the final result with this one. I had a vision in my head and it just came to life like perfectly. Look at the sparkle of that glitter. I'm really loving this mix. I'm gonna have to use it on something else. And yeah, I really love how this turned out and I hope that you do too. I hope this tutorial helps you in wrapping tapered cups like this with vinyl. And I can't wait to see what you come up with using this technique. So if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button as well so you don't miss any new videos. We upload every single Tuesday and Saturday. Okay, thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you in my next video. Okay, love you. Bye.